In this video, we'll learn about elastic collision, inelastic collision, and also we'll do some problems related to this topic. So to understand elastic collision, let's say there are two bodies. One is with mass m1, velocity v1. Another is coming with mass m2, velocity v2. And they collide, and after collision, this is the situation. m1 is moving with velocity v1 prime, m2 is moving with velocity v2 prime. So what does elastic collision means? Elastic collision means total kinetic energy of the system will remain constant. Means initial kinetic energy before collision is equal to kinetic energy after collision. Now how will you write kinetic energy before collision? You see, this is our system and it has two bodies. So what is the kinetic energy initial is equal to half m1 v1 square, which correspond to the first one, plus half m2 v2 square, which correspond to the second one. Similarly, you can write kinetic energy final half m1 v1 prime square plus half m2 v2 prime square. So what does elastic collision means? Elastic collision means initial kinetic energy, this part is equal to kinetic energy final. So there is no loss in kinetic energy. Second is inelastic collision. So what is inelastic collision? In inelastic collision, some part of kinetic energy is converted into some other form of energy. So what will happen? There is a loss in kinetic energy. So kinetic energy initial is not equal to kinetic energy final. So how will you calculate the loss in kinetic energy? Loss in kinetic energy is equal to final minus initial. Since kinetic energy is decreasing, so what will happen? This factor will become negative. So now we'll do some problems. First problem is elastic collision of two balls, and it is one dimensional, means bodies can move only in one direction. Okay, so let's say there are two bodies and one is coming with one is with mass m1 with velocity v, another is mass m2 and it has equal velocity, equal and opposite velocity. Means if it is v, this is also v, and direction is opposite, so that's why there is a minus sign. So this is the situation before collision, and m2 is equal to 3m1, and after collision m1, this is moving with v1 prime and m2 moving with v2 prime. So we have to find out, in this problem we have to find out what is v1 prime and what is v2 prime. Okay, so how many unknowns are there? There are two unknowns. So how many equations we need to find out v1 prime and v2 prime? We need two equations. So first thing is, this is elastic collision. So one equation we can write, initial kinetic energy is equal to final kinetic energy. So what is the initial kinetic energy here? Kinetic energy half m1 v square plus half m2, because there is a square here, so this will also become plus, so it will become half m2 v square. Now I can put m2 is equal to 3m1. So what does it will give? Initial kinetic energy is equal to 2m1 v square. So what is the final kinetic energy? Half m1 v1 prime square plus half m2 v2 prime square. Now I can put m2 is equal to 3m1. Since the collision is elastic, so initial kinetic energy is equal to final kinetic energy. After putting these things, what you can get is 4v square is equal to v1 prime square plus 3v2 prime square. So this is our equation number 1. Now the question is, how will you get the second equation? As we know from Newton's second law of motion, let's say there is a mass m, and if we apply some external force, so external force is equal to mass into acceleration. That can be written as d by dt of m into v. So what is mb here? Mb is the momentum, so I can write f external is equal to dp by dt. So what I have done is, I have written Newton's second law of motion in terms of momentum. Now let's say external force is 0. So what will happen? dp by dt is equal to 0. So what does it mean? This means p is independent of time, so p will remain constant. Means pi, initial momentum, is equal to final momentum. Okay, so now this is our system and it has two bodies, m1 with velocity v and m2 with velocity minus v. Is there any force acting on this system? There is, because the motion is in horizontal direction. So horizontal direction, there is no external force. Gravity is acting in vertical direction, so it has no significance here because the motion is in horizontal direction. So what we can say? We can say initial momentum before collision is equal to final momentum after collision. So how will you write? So initial momentum m1 v minus m2 v. Why this minus sign? Because it is opposite velocity. So now you can put m2 is equal to 3m1, so it will become minus 2m1 v. Similarly, we can write final momentum m1 v1 prime plus m2 v2 prime. So this will give m1 v1 prime plus 3 m1 v2 prime. So pi is equal to pf. After solving this one, you will get minus 2v is equal to v1 prime plus 3v2 prime. So this is our equation number 2. And our equation 1 is 4v square v1 prime square plus 3v2 prime square. So using these two equations, I can solve for v1 prime and v2 prime. So if I put using this equation 2, we can say v1 prime is equal to 3v2 prime minus 2v. Now I can put it here in this equation, and after solving, what you will get 12 v2 prime into v2 prime plus v is equal to 0. So this is like x into y is equal to 0. So how many solutions it has? It can have two solutions. So it's like x into y is equal to 0. So x can be 0 or y can be 0. So what is the first possibility? v2 prime is equal to 0. If v2 prime is 0, then you can put it here, v2 prime is equal to 0. So v1 prime will become minus 2v. So what is happening in this case? m2, after colliding, m2 will come to rest while m1 will turn back with double velocity. Okay, so second case, v2 prime is equal to minus v. So what is v1 prime? V. So what are these velocities? These are the velocities before collision only. So this means bodies will keep moving with the same velocity. It is like that nothing has happened after collision. Okay, now second problem is, in this problem what happened, there is a car of mass m with velocity v, and there is one other car of mass m which is stationary, which is at rest, and it will collide with this one. And after that, what will happen? Both will move with the both will stick together and will move with velocity v prime. So what we have, and first thing is, this collision is inelastic collision, and what we have to find out is, we have to find out what is v prime. So now how will you do this problem? Now you see here, this is our system. Okay, so is there any external force on this system? Because the motion is in horizontal direction, so in horizontal direction there is no external force. So what we can do is, we can apply law of conservation of momentum, linear momentum. So pi is equal to pf. So what is the initial momentum before collision? mb, because second is at rest. What is the final momentum? pf is equal to m plus m into v prime. So pi is equal to pf, so this will give v prime is equal to mv divided by m plus m. Now how will you calculate the loss of kinetic energy? So loss of kinetic energy is equal to final kinetic energy minus initial kinetic energy. So what is the final kinetic energy? Half m plus m v prime square, initial kinetic energy minus half mv square. Now what we can do is, we can put the value of v prime here, and after calculating we will get minus m capital M v square divided by 2m plus m. This minus sign is coming. Why? Because there is a loss of kinetic energy.